What's up guys, it's TheWaggishAmerican here, today bringing you another model build. Today I'm going to be building the third plane in my A Zero in Every Scale series, the 1/48 scale Tamiya A6M2. Right before I open it, this is my favorite box art out of any of them. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the boxes for these projects yet. I want to display them in some way, and this one definitely will get displayed, no matter what I do with the other boxes. So again, as usual, this should just be kind of expected at this point, but I have taken stuff off the sprue. Right off the bat, what I really like, the clear parts are really nice. They're very thin, there's no mold issues, and a huge favorite of mine about this kit, it comes with two sets of canopy, one open, one closed. I haven't decided if I'm going to go with open for this project, but it's definitely nice to have that option. Within the kit, it's pretty basic. Two sprues. So this is an old Tamiya kit, so it's nice. It's pretty nice, it seems. It fits pretty okay. The panels are a mixture of recessed and raised, mostly raised. So a panel line wash isn't really going to work on this project. I'm going to have to do it mostly with pre-shading. One thing I do really like is how much detail they managed to squeeze in the landing gear wells. There's not really a whole lot of flash anywhere on this kit, which is really nice. There are a couple little mold seams here and there and some flash, but overall it's really not bad. The cowling comes as two parts, which is kind of annoying, but, you know, it probably molds better as two. Even some modern, like the Airfix 72nd one, has a lot of cleanup, and that's a one piece. It does come with two 1/48 scale figures, one standing and one sitting. I definitely won't use the sitting one. I may use the standing one in the final display piece here. The cockpit is pretty basic. You've just got a sidewall, a floor, the bulkhead, control panel, stick, and chair. So not too much going on in the cockpit, but it's pretty detailed for the time. Then you got this other sprue with just the smaller parts. This is going to be, I think, the only one that's going to have a permanent gas tank, external gas tank. Instructions are your typical Tamiya. The decals look really nice. I know people have had a hard time with Tamiya decals in the across YouTube. I haven't had the opportunity to use them yet, so I'll see how this goes. I really like that Tamiya does this, and just for this reason, I'll probably buy a lot more of their 48 scale kits. I love these really nice glossy printouts. These are very snazzy. Alright, I'll see you guys at the build. The build begins in the cockpit. After dabbing black paint into the deeper areas, I applied several coats of Tamiya XF71 cockpit green. Once the paint had dried, I used a brush to apply two fairly thick coats of Future. I waited a day for the Future to cure before slathering the inside with Tamiya Panel Line Accent Color Black, which was then cleaned with a thinner dampened cotton swab. Using a fine brush and Vallejo colors, I picked out small details, dials, and switches. The Tamiya seat had the belt molded in place. It was too much trouble to remove the belt, so instead I just painted it as it was using Tamiya Deck Tan. Satisfied with the cockpit, I hand brushed Vallejo matte varnish to remove the gloss from the interior. With the cockpit detailed, I assembled the various pieces with extra thin cement and Humbrol poly cement. With the cockpit assembled, I glued it into the fuselage. I then sealed the fuselage halves together. As the fuselage joint cured, I went to work on the wings. The kit tries to replicate the slight sagging of a Zero when it's on the ground. They do this pretty well, though the effect might be a little bit too heavy. With the wings dry, I attached the assembly and stabilizers, completing the main airframe. As the primer dried on the airframe, I worked on the engine. I painted the engine with Tester's metallic silver. I then gave it a coat of Flory black wash to bring out the details before installing the completed engine into the painted cowl. As my most recent 1/48 scale model aircraft, and as a practice airplane essentially, I was finally able to give the marbling pre-shading technique a try. After priming the airplane with Tamiya NATO Black, I used a fairly thin mix of Tamiya XF83 to apply the marbling. This was done by using a thin mix of paint with low pressure and holding the nozzle very close to the surface of the model. I then squiggled my hand back and forth to try to make random areas, while keeping the panel lines dark. With the marbling complete, I painted the main color, a 75% 25% mix of Tamiya XF76 and Tamiya XF2. This was thinned approximately 7 parts thinner to 3 parts paint and applied in several very light coats. Once the paint was dry, I masked off the area around the wheel wells and sprayed Tamiya X13 to replicate Awataki. After 2 coats of Tamiya gloss had dried, I got to the worst part of the kit, the decals. I applied them with my usual method of microset and microsol. I used Flory Model's Dark Earth wash to bring out the hinge lines and the few recessed details that were present on the model. I then sprayed a coat of matte varnish to unify the model. To differentiate this kit from the rest in this series, I decided to include the drop tank. After the halves were assembled and sanded, I primed the part with Vallejo Gloss Black primer. I then painted the drop tank with Vallejo Model Air Silver. I tried to replicate the spilled fuel visible on the box art by painting streaks of burnt umber artist oil. I then blended this in with a flat brush lightly loaded with mineral spirits. All that remained was the installation of several small exterior pieces and the attachment of the canopy and propeller, and with that, the build was completed. And here she is, the finished model. Overall, it's not that great of a model, I have to say. It's passable. It's certainly passable, but the lack of detail, this weird mixture of recessed panel lines and raised panel lines on the same surfaces is a huge downside. It doesn't fit particularly well, and I did not record this, unfortunately, for the video, but when I installed the landing gear, it looked fine as it installed. Everything clicked into place. I was like, oh, this fits good. This is going to be great. But then once it dried and I set it down, the left one was probably at least a millimeter longer than the right one was probably a millimeter longer than the left one. And at scale, it made it look like that. So it was off by a lot. So I had to rip that out and cut it down, and now this is just butt joined in. So that was not fun. This was a good learning experience, though, before I do the 32nd scale one, to tell me that there is no way I'm going to risk ruining my 32nd scale model using Tamiya decals. I'm either going to buy some aftermarket decals, or on that large of scale, I'm thinking of just buying a stencil set for everything. I've seen a really good build. I think it's Koga's Zero build. If you search the name, you can find it on Google. A really good build of the 1/32nd scale kit with a stencil set. Yeah, I think it came out alright. It's not my favorite one in this series so far, but came out pretty good. And I'll see you guys. My next video on this series will be probably the finale of this series. I don't think I'm going to end up being able to get the 24th scale one unless I can find it somewhere else. Everywhere I found it is just too much, and I'd rather spend that much on other projects. So, if you would like to see the last one, the 72nd scale build, click here. If you'd like to see the next one once it's available, the 32nd scale build, click here. And it'd be awesome if you could subscribe. You can click here to do that. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.